Good evening. This class is going to be on NFS, Network File Sharing. What we're going to do, we are going to set up a directory, two different directories on two separate servers. And these directories and files within these directories will sync between the two servers. Just note that these steps can be applied to more than two servers. You can have many machines sharing the same directory, sharing the files. All right, so let's get the steps started. So I have two servers already available to me. Sean, my server, is going to be the host server, and Heath Cohen, this server, is going to be the client server. So the first step we're going to do on these servers is to check and see if we have NFS network file sharing installed. So the command is going to be RPM, the curly command, flag QA, NFS with the wildcard, and it is not on the host server. And same command on the client server, and it is not on the client server, so we're going to install it on the client server and the host server. So the installation is finished on the host server. It's also finished on the client server. So now that it is installed on both servers, we are going to first start the service, start the NFS service, and turn on the NFS service with check config. So the first step is to start the NFS service. We started it on the host server, and now we are going to turn it on with check config. And we can double check to see if it is actually turned on by running the check config. NFS list command. We're going to see that it's turned on run levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to take the same steps on the client server. Just to show what it looks like when you check NFS before you actually turn it on with the check config. You see that on all of the run levels it is not on. So we're going to run the check config NFS on command, and we look again. Now it's on run levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now what we're going to do is create the shared directory on the host server. So on the host server, we are going to create our shared directory in our home directory. So it's going to be mkdir for make directory, home, and the name of the directory is going to be shared folder and camel casing. So the directory already exists. I created it earlier. It's empty, so we're just going to use it and go from here. So now that it's created, we have to, this is where it starts to get a little technical. Now, our etc exports file, we are going to go in there and add some information to ensure that the directory on the host server will sync with the directory on the client or client servers. So here I am into our etc exports file. The information in this file is going to start with the absolute path of the directory to the shared directory on the host server. Next is going to be the IP address of the client server or servers, or a IP address or IP address range. In this case is one IP address, so it's going to be IP address of the client server. Parentheses, and we are going to put some characters in here. RW stands for read write. This makes the shared folder writable. Synchronizes the shared directory whenever files are created on either server. No_root_squash. What this does is enable root privileges so users can read and write and delete files in the shared directory. And the last thing that goes in here is no_all_squash. Close parentheses. And this, the last part, no_all_squash, enables users authority. So we're going to save this file, and we are going to restart NFS service. Okay, now that's done. The next step is to go into our sysconfig files for NFS and IP tables. So all on a host server. So on the host server, we are going to cd over to our sysconfig, our configuration files for NFS. And I just want to point out that I have already made a copy. In the event I make a mistake in this NFS file and something breaks, I can just come in, remove it, move the copied file to the original, and then try again. So I already have a copy. So I recommend that you make a copy of any of these important files before you make any changes to them, in case you make a mistake and you don't catch the mistake until it's too late. So we already have the copy of it. So now we're going to VIM into the file. And while we're in here, certain lines have to be uncommented out. So in this file, there are 6 lines that have to be uncommented. And the way that I remember them are, the 6 lines are going to end with a port number. So we're going to move to the top. And the way I like to move through the file is by numbering all the lines in the file with the set NU command at the bottom. And as I look through, line number 12 ends with port 875, so that one has to be uncommented. So :12, I move right to it, X to remove the hashtag. Line number 20 also has to be uncommented because it's a TCP port with a port number. So move to 20, X, uncomment. So Control F moves down to the next page. Line 22 has to be uncommented. X, that's 3. Move down to the next page. I don't see any other lines that end in port numbers on this page. And on the next page, line 57, port 892. Pay attention to these numbers. So we have 32803. We have 892. Let's go back and take a look. Control B. So move back up. So we have 885, 32803, 32769, 892, line number 63, which is 662, line 66, which is 2020. And move on down to the next one, Control F. And that's it, those 6. Let's go back up. 2020, 662, that's 2, 892, 3, 32769, 4, 32803, 5, and 875, 6. So we're going to save this file. And after we save the file, when we make any changes to our NFS or IP tables files, one thing that we must remember to do is to restart the service. So service NFS restart. And now we are going to go into our IP tables file. So we are already in our configuration file area with sysconfigs. Take a look and scroll on up to IP tables. And the copy of the IP tables that I have is IP tables save. That is my copy. So we're going to go into our IP tables. Since we already have a backup of it. Let me stop right here. Just to show you how to make a copy of the file, I like to personally make a copy of the file near the original file. So the command would be to CP for copy. I'll use the absolute path X, sysconfig. And in this case, we just did NFS, so I'll do NFS. That's the original file with a space. And where I'm going to copy it to is going to be the same location, same file, NFS. And this is where I add my extension of what I want it to be called. So it could be .copy, .save, .backup, however you want to name it. So that's the command you will run in order to make a backup copy. I already have mine, so I'm not going to do it. So we are going to VI. Well, first let me clear the screen. We're going to VI into IP tables. And all of those port numbers that we just uncommented out, they are going to come into this IP tables. The line with port 22 right here, this line meets the standards or the requirements that we are going to put in all 12 of those, 7 IP numbers, 7 port numbers. We're going to put 7 port numbers in here for a total of 12 lines, and that is because many of these port numbers are going to have two protocols, one for TCP and UDP. So I'm going to make a copy of this line 12 times, YY12P, and I'm going to start changing them. So just to give you an example, you don't have to sit here and watch this entire thing. I'll just show you how I do one of them or two of them. So the first port number that I'm going to put in here is going to be, insert, 2049, 049, come down here, 2049, and 2049 has two different protocols, one for TCP and the other one for UDP. So there's TCP and here's UDP for 2049, and that port is now open. We're going to move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So one thing I'd like to add before we move on to the next one, port numbers 32769 and 32803. Those two port numbers are the only two port numbers that do not have TCP and UDP protocols for each one. For example, port number 32769 is a UDP protocol only. So we are going to change this to UDP, and we're going to make sure that it goes exactly where it needs to be. And TCP 32803 is a TCP protocol. So we are going to change it here. All the other ports require a TCP and UDP protocol. So I'll finish this up, and you'll see when we're done. Okay, now that we have all of our port numbers open and we have they are given their correct protocols, we can go ahead and save this file. I'm just doing a double check to make sure that the numbers, there are no errors in these lines. So once we're satisfied, we save the file, and this is the IP tables file. We made some changes to it. So now that we saved it, what we have to do next is to restart it. Service IP tables, restart. So now that that is restarted, we can go on over to the client server. Now on the client server, what we're going to do is create a shared directory that is going to communicate with the host server. So we're going to make a directory. Let me go back on the host server. We are going to cd into a home directory where we have the shared directory for the client server. This directory, shared folder, has to have these specific permissions, also known as 755. Read, write, execute for the user owner, read and execute for the groups, and read and execute for others. In the event, when you create this directory, these are not your permissions on the directory, you're going to have to make a change. So there's several ways you can do it. I'm not going to go over every single way you can change the permissions, but one easy way to do it is to run the chmod command. Just give it 755 to the directory, and that will give those permissions. We don't have to do it, it's already done. So, but I just want to put that out there in case when you do it, your permissions are different. So remember, when you create the shared directory on the host server, the permissions for that shared directory must be 755, which equate to read, write, execute for the user owner, read and execute for the groups, and read and execute for others. Okay, now back to the client server. So we are going to create a directory, parenting directory. We're going to call this, we're going to put it in the root file system, NFS MTS. And now what we are going to do is mount this directory to the shared directory on the host server. So the command to mount it is going to be mount flag T. The file type is NFS. The IP address of the host server, so in this case, colon, the absolute path to the shared directory, which is on the home folder, home directory. It's called shared folder, space, and we are mounting it to the directory we just created for the shared directory. In this case, NFS MTS. And to double check that it's mounted, you run the mount command, and you're going to see at the bottom that it is mounted right here. The IP address to the host machine, the absolute path to the host machine directory's shared folder. It's mounted on NFS. The file type is NFS. Mounted on NFS MTS, which is directory on the client server. And read, write, and all these other things are in here. These are all necessary. So that means that it's mounted. So now we're going to conduct a test. So we're going to clear the screen. We are going to CD into the shared folder. If I can type to the shared folder. There's nothing in here. So we're going to create a file. We're going to look in here, and we see that it's in here on the client server. So we're going to move over to the host server. We're going to go into the shared folder. Let's clear the screen. We're going to move into the shared folder. And the file that we just created on the client server is here on the host server. And to continue the test, we are going to create a directory on the host server, dir1. And we should be able to go over to the client server and take a look into the same shared directory on the client server, and there it is. So they're synced. So now that works, but there's one more step we must take to make this persistent upon reboot. And the step that we're going to take to make sure that happens is to VI into the XCFS tab file. Before I do that, mount. This information here has to go into the XCFS tab file, or a variation of this type of information. You could echo or copy this into the FS tab file, but I personally like to type in the pertinent information into the XCFS tab file. So I am going to VI, let's clear the screen, VI into the XCFS tab file. We already down at the bottom, and the information is going to go in here. Is going to take this format. It's going to start off with the IP address to the host server. We are in the FS tab file on the client server, so the IP address to the host server is what goes in here. Colon the absolute path to the shared directory on the host server. In this case is home shared folder. Put a space here for 102. The absolute path to the directory, shared directory on the client server, NFS MTS. The file type is NFS. So read, write, sync, hard, enter. Then I just put 0, 0 over here. And we save this file, and we are going to restart the machine. Actually, we're going to restart both machines. So we're going to go back on over to the host server, restart this one also. So now that they are restarting, and due to the magic of editing, we are going to log right back in. As we log into the client server, clear the screen. You're going to CD on over to the shared folder. Those files are still there. We're going to give it another test. We're going to create a directory here. Call it client directory. Then we are going to go over to the host server and log back in. Now that we're logged in, we're going to move over to the shared directory on the host server. Take a look, and there it is, client dir. And to do another test, you create a file over here. Shows up here, goes over to the client server, shows up there. So that's it. Those are the steps to create a network file sharing between at least two servers. To add to this network file sharing for the host server, you can add more clients. You would just have to go into the Etsy export file, and you can add more servers here. If you could actually add a range of servers here, or a range of IP addresses right here if you know a range. But if you don't have a range, if you just have specific IP address, what you would do is copy the line and you would change this IP address. I would add another IP address to another server. And if this client server were to go through the other steps that we just did on the client server by creating a shared directory, mounting the shared directory with the host server's IP address, and then adding that information to the fstab file, they will all share the same directory. Those three servers would be connected to the same directory. I'm just going to save this, and that concludes the lesson. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.